You're not a well-known national political figure. Your own riding through the redistricting has become less competitive for you.
It is happening. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today's top story here. Mark Carney unofficially, basically officially announces he is running for the Liberal leadership race. He does this where we all don't expect. On the Jon Stewart show in America. We've also got another candidate throwing their hat into the ring here for the Liberal leadership race. Someone we all didn't expect. Let's jump into this. We got this clip here. This was just uploaded in the last few hours. Mark Carney on the Daily Show in America.
So right now there is turmoil. Trudeau has resigned.
Yes.
There will be new elections. When do you know when the new elections are?
They have to be by October.
Okay.
They could come sooner.
Sooner than October?
Sooner than October, yes.
Now, what would be the trigger of the election sooner?
Well, it would be likely the choice of the current governing party, which is the Liberal Party.
And you are of the Liberal Party?
I am of the Liberal Party, yes.
Are they looking for a new leader?
I think they might be, John.
Sir, may I recommend to you, with your charm and debonair wit, yet strong financial backbone, that you offer yourself have you offered yourself as leader?
I just started thinking about it when you brought it.
Oh, please, just started thinking about it. He's been salivating about this for years.
Because here's what the Conservatives are run by Pierre.
Yes.
Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
It's a fictional J.K. Rowling name at best. Pierre Poilievre. They look like two fictional boys' school rivals. Poilievre seems like a villain in a Karate Kid movie. Like there's something very...
If you haven't picked up, this is a very leftist show.
Very off-putting. What is he like in person?
Karate...
Take your time.
You're not far off. He is.
Carney's remembering when Pierre Poilievre absolutely destroyed him in that committee meeting.
He is. There is. I'll say this.
Yes.
There is a type of politician. You have a few of them here in the United States. I think we just
stop it.
Yeah. In Canada, a type of politician who's tend to be a lifelong politician.
Really?
Tend to worship the market. They've never actually worked in the private sector.
Right.
And they see.
So you can see this is how he's going to be attacking Poilievre.
The opportunity in tragedy, like you just had with the California fires, these horrible fires.
Correct.
And they see opportunity and tragedy to push an agenda that here's one they prepared earlier.
Right.
And they fit it in. And so whether it was Brexit here, often, the starve the beast type approach. So Pierre Poilievre, when COVID started, his reaction was, this is a good time to cut spending and cut taxes. Everyone's just been pushed out of a job.
The Conservatives are always pushing to cut taxes and cut bureaucracy. And this is not something new. This is not something that just happened during the World event.
Nobody's got work, so let's cut the taxes on the work they don't have, and let's take away the social safety net when everybody's vulnerable.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did that work out for you? Were people out of their
fortunately,
home?
he was in opposition, so...
Oh, that was his idea.
That was his idea.
Excuse me? During the World event, Pierre Poilievre argued that all the Liberal excessive spending would lead to inflation, debt accumulation, and economic instability. Guess what happened after the Liberals spent so much money, had such a terrible rollout of that program related to the World event? We end up with massive inflation that's crippled our economy, insane debt when we're running $62 billion for the past year here, which has just gone up and up and up every single year, and massive economic instability in our country, with droves of companies leaving our country. Poilievre predicted exactly what would happen. Yet Mark Carbon Tax Carney is defending what Trudeau did. Is Carney going to enact the Emergencies Act 2 and bring out the horses to take care of those angry Canadians?
Yeah. The people now, see, the headwinds for this more right-wing populism, though, are all around the world, and it feels like Canada is no different there. I mean, did Trudeau bow out because he knew he wouldn't win? Is this an attempt to give the Liberal Party there a chance?
I think it does give the Liberal Party a chance, yes.
Right.
He is so delusional if he thinks the Liberals have a chance. Now, we'll say, just looking in the comments, there's obviously a bunch of people ripping him, but there's a few people. He's got serious cred. I'd vote for him. You got the opposite here. I don't need to learn values from a guy who ran a central bank. He was successful, steered Canada through times of crisis. He would be a perfect person to step into this role now. This was a great interview. After watching this, I'd love to see him as a Liberal leader. So these are the Liberals speaking up here. So the Liberals who don't like Trudeau are going to come back for Carney. So like I said before, there's going to be a bump in the Liberal numbers. That 16% approval for Trudeau will definitely go up into the 20s for Carney, and they'll probably see a few more seat projections of some of the Liberals coming back who have drifted over into the Conservatives or in the NDP will be coming back for Carney, but it's not going to be enough. Like another Liberal here, I'd vote for Carney. Thank goodness there's an alternative to Poilievre. He's such an obnoxious loudmouth. I personally don't vote based on how somebody sounds. It's what are they going to do for our country. Poilievre's the only one that's going to cut the taxes and cut the inflation, cut the bureaucracy, and get our country back.
Canadians been very hard pressed in the last few years.
Right.
Wages have not kept up with inflation. People are falling behind, not getting ahead. Housing's very expensive, and there's this broader concern. Again, exclamation point put on by the Trump tariffs about what the future brings. The world's more divided. It's more dangerous. What are we going to do? And
let me guess, you're the solution, right? Carbon tax, Carney?
Be told the government has been not as focused on those issues as it could be.
Oh, really? Why was that? Is that your buddy Justin Trudeau not focusing on those issues?
We need to focus on them immediately. That can happen now, and that's what this election is going to be about.
Can I tell you something? I feel like it's when the headwinds are like that, it's really difficult for a candidate to come in who is saddled with the policies that are on.
But let's say,
oh boy,
let's say, just the candidate wasn't part of the government. Let's say the candidate did have a lot of economic experience. Let's say the candidate did deal with crises. Let's say the candidate had a plan to deal with the challenges in the here and now.
You sneaky, you're running as an outsider.
I am an outsider.
Wow, that's all. So
why isn't he announcing he's running? He's basically saying he is on this show. This next segment here, they're talking about forest fires.
You got the fires.
We got the fires. Got the fires, John.
Yeah.
If the fires alone would have made Canada the fourth largest emitter in the world after the United States, China, and India.
Just the fires.
Just the fires alone. And this, you could see this coming 10 years ago as the insurance companies, and now we're dealing with this, which is why we need to act more broadly on the issue of
through climate and everything.
Yeah, more carbon taxes. He's not hiding his agenda. Got a clip here of him trying to grease the wheels of other Liberals, trying to get their support for this upcoming Liberal leadership race.
Please.
I want to defend, because this is a very important point. So if you look at our foreign minister,
yes,
Melanie Joly, our finance minister, Dominic LeBlanc, Steve McKinnon, who's our labor minister, they are not running, in part because there's a crisis right now because of the threat of the Trump tariffs. So
they're saying I won't run because I want to focus on.
They're country before party and personal ambition, and it's absolutely
right.
Trying his best to get their support.
Congratulations on announcing on this program that you are running to be the leader.
I mean, that greasy smile says it all. Look at this guy. Count Chocula is out of control here. So officially, unofficially, perhaps later in the day here, Mark Carney announces he's officially running. This is the unofficial announcement that he is running. It's written all over this weirdo's face.
We seal it with a handshake.
Mark Carney wants to chase this Century Initiative, getting 100 million people by 2100 and jack our carbon taxes. And he's not hiding it. That's what he wants to do. Comment like this one here, he understands money, the economy, and he proved himself in 2008. He gets it. The problem is there's no promise that he'll do that for other people. Greedy politicians serve themselves. So if he understands the money and the economy, what stops him from self-serving beyond belief? I mean, that's what we have with Trudeau. Imagine if Trudeau was a lot smarter and knew how to operate the banks and money a lot better. Think of the amount of corruption that could happen. In other news, we have another Liberal who is trying to enter the Liberal leadership race, someone we all didn't expect.
Well, the field of possible candidates for the next Liberal leader and Prime Minister is changing yet again. This is everyone we know of who's either running or still considering a leadership bid. Two ministers disappeared from the list over the weekend, with Anita Anand and Stephen McKinnon both bowing out.
This is their A-team. Like, come on. Karina Gould, she's still considering it. Same with Wilkinson. Can anyone really see her running the country? Like any of them? They're all fools.
But we've also got a new face on the board. Cape Breton MP Jaimie Battiste is the first Mi'kmaq member of Parliament and now wants to be the first Indigenous Prime Minister. He says he's going to launch an exploratory team to see if he can meet the requirements to run. Liberal MP Jaimie Battiste joins me now. Jaimie Battiste, welcome to the show. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Dave. Good to see you again.
You were not on any of the lists of suspected candidates for the party's top job. Why are you adding your name to this list now? What's the status of this?
To be totally honest, I wasn't on my own list. I was really hoping that individuals like Sean Fraser would put his hand up. I was hoping to see an Atlantic voice.
Sean Fraser's a loser, but he's the only one smart enough to abandon the ship at the latest point possible, to not go down with it entirely.
One of the things I've been thinking about is, as I've been talking with some of the leadership hopefuls, is I haven't heard really about reconciliation, about the environment, about social justice as much as I would need to be.
What, is this because Trudeau didn't keep up his end of the deal? Let me guess, he didn't clean up the drinking water like he promised to. And let me guess, we're not paying enough taxes to the sky gods to fix the weather.
Be comfortable supporting them at the moment. And I want to run a positive campaign, but to be honest, David, I was strongly urged to do this by First Nations leaders from across Canada. The more conversations I had with folks, I said, this has never been done. It's a long shot at best. And they said, you don't know until you try. And so
oh, please, this guy's a crumb snatcher. He's not going to get any votes.
Really feel like I can be a voice for the Atlantic. I can be a voice for Indigenous people on the ballot. One of the most vocal members of my caucus inside that caucus. As well as I've known people from Indigenous leaders from across the Canada and have built a network through my days with the Assembly of First Nations.
So he's one of the most vocal. That makes him qualified to be Prime Minister. Get out of here.
But also, talking to Indigenous leaders, I was talking to people like Wab Kinew, Premier Kinew, and I said, before there ever was a Premier Wab Kinew, there was a Elijah Harp. Before there ever was a President Barack Obama, there was a Jesse Jackson. Someone always has to be the first to try, even if the first steps they're taking is meant to help pave a road for the next generation. And so that's really what is inspiring me to do this.
It's going to take, though, a national profile. $350,000 is the cover charge to get into this race, and you still got to run a campaign beyond that. And you're obviously going to need a national network of fundraisers and organizers for this to be a credible launch. I mean, can you clear those bars?
He's basically saying, do you really have enough supporters to pay for this? Because it's really expensive. It's been rigged for Mark Carbon Tax Carney to win. Because they basically need not only that 350, but like another 200 grand just to run their campaign afterwards. So they need about 550.
Well, that's the first step. And I think that, I've been interested in hearing how you've been talking about candidates still considering it. What candidates are doing right now are spending every hour making calls. Basically, with a $350,000 threshold, you have to make $1,000 per hour in donations to reach that, because you can only put $25,000 of your own money into this. But I've been making calls across the country. I've got folks in Saskatchewan. I've got folks in Manitoba. I've got folks in Ontario that said they would make calls for me. And First Nations leaders are excited about this and saying,
A 2021 census found there's 1.8 million Indigenous people in Canada, equating to a total of 5% of our population. So if you think you're going to run on strictly just being the first Indigenous guy to do it, you're not going to win. You have to have a platform that is based on something else. Surely he knows this.
This has never been tried before. And so the first hurdle is to get to that 350,000 threshold. I've told folks that what I really want to do is reach out, do a social media campaign, because I can't afford to be on a plane all across Canada. Right. It has to be phone calls. And like I said, $1,000 per hour is the threshold. So what I've told people is that First Nations leaders have said, listen, if I can get 700 First Nations leaders, Atlantic people, to move forward and donate to my campaign. Sorry about this, but I hope that
that's a campaign momentum there, right? That's the people calling right now.
Manager, right. As a matter of fact.
Okay, all right. Well, but look, I want to ask you though. Like you're getting into this, when there are big names like Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, we expect will get in. Christy Clark has already indicated some things, but Jaimie Battiste. I say this with no disrespect because I'm a proud Atlantic Canadian as well. You're not a well-known national political figure. Your own riding through the redistricting has become less competitive for you. It's more challenging for you. I mean, how do you overcome those challenges to make a credible pitch to Liberals?
So first, let's just look at his riding. So I brought it up on two different sources here. So his riding got split. It was Sydney Victoria. Now it's Sydney Glace Bay, but still conservative safe. He's not going to win it. If you look on Polywave, same thing here, 48%. He's not going to win it. So unless he wants to rob someone else's seat, which is what he would do, but he's not going to win. This isn't a serious contender here.
I think the first step is the financing and the fundraising and building a team. What I've announced so far is that I'm putting together an exploratory team from across the country in building that momentum. Quite frankly, you have to build momentum and you have to build a network across the country. Luckily, I've been doing this as a First Nations youth leader since I was 22 years.
Okay, we've had enough of this guy. He's not going to win. He's not going to get hardly any votes. He can't be serious here. This guy isn't even a minister. He's the parliamentary secretary to Indigenous Affairs or whatever. Crown Indigenous Relations. I just looked it up. So this guy's not even on the front row. He thinks he's going to step up and be prime minister. Good luck.
Well, Jaimie Battiste, you've highlighted two things, your Atlantic roots and your Indigenous heritage, your Mi'kmaq, right? For people who don't know. I have a question, though. Like, you've had to retract a couple of comments that upset people in Atlantic Canada and upset Indigenous people, right? Like, you recently talked about the EI culture of Atlantic Canada. I believe it was at the recent caucus meeting where you had to choke that back. And then in the 2019 campaign, some of your past tweets about Indigenous women were brought up, and you had to apologize for those. I mean, people are going to research you and Google you if they're going to get on board, and these are some of the things they're going to find. I mean, what do you say to people who say this is disqualifying?
This is funny because I don't even have to bring this up because they're going to bring this up on the CBC because they want to keep favoring Mark Carbon Tax Carney.
Well, I think that, I don't want to be defined by my past. I want to learn from it. And, the things that I said in tweets when I was a different person in a different part of my life is not the leader that I've been today. When those things were going on, I called a person like Wab Kinew, who was an MLA at the time, and I said, what do you think I should do? And he said, you get a chance to show them who you really are. And I think over the past 5 years, I've got to show people who I really am. And as for the Atlantic comment around EI, like if you look at that interview, they were asking me about what are the issues that people were talking to me about. And the people who were talking to me about fisheries and EI, right. And they took a quote that was a throwaway quote, but if you look at the interview, that was actually happening. And David, just not to make excuses, but if you've ever woke up at 3:30 a.m., flown from Sydney, Nova Scotia, all the way to Nanaimo, BC, and then had a media scrum as soon as you get in, I think the whole interview as a whole was a lot better than the throwaway line that they tried to pin on me.
Well, I mean, that kind of travel and that kind of schedule would be a thing were you to win. I mean, the tweet was, why do I assume every skinny Aboriginal girl is on crystal meth or pills? But it's just say you were much younger and you've apologized for that, but that is still there, right?
Also, let's get it close. That was, it said watching APTN. It was a show on APTN. So, but you know what? I've done a lot to ensure that I've shown that I'll be a leader and a champion for Indigenous women. I'm really proud of.
Yeah, we're looking for a leader for Canada, not just Indigenous people in this country. Once again, 5% of our nation. You can't just have someone say, I want to represent just the Palestinians or just the Irish. None of these people realize it has to be Canada first, not Canada last or Canada second. There we have it. Mark Carney, aka the architect of the Century Initiative, the plan to get 100 million people in Canada by 2100, wants to be the leader of Canada. This whole time he's been pushing his policies through Justin Trudeau. And now he's finally going to take a swing at this. He thinks he can win. He thinks he can convince Canadians that adding more carbon taxes is the solution we need.